Hey everybody, what's going on? We are ready to go. Real Training Live here on this Wednesday afternoon. It is 1 o'clock Eastern time, which means you're in the right place, guys. It is time for the best training on the planet, Real Training Live, and I am Coach James. So give me 1 second. As always, guys, I'm going to just refresh my screen so that I can make sure I can see any and all comments that you guys have for me, questions that you guys have for me. We want to make sure that this is as interactive as possible, guys. So give me 1 second here as I'm scrolling down, making sure I can actually see the post here. All right, so we should be all set to go, guys. So again, as always, very excited to be here on this Wednesday afternoon. I know that we come together each and every week and are just trying to do some great things together between the two of us, or the 5 of us, or the 15 of us, however many of you guys that are with me live. And I know some of you are watching this as a rebroadcast. So do me a favor, as you are watching this, just comment below. Let me know if you are live or if you are a rebroadcast. And also let me know what marketplace you are checking in from, all right? So 2 things that I always try to start off these Real Training Live sessions with, and that is, number 1, I am looking to give you information that you guys can use, that you guys can put into practice, right? Because it is one thing to basically be committed to your goals, but the reality is for so many agents, they just don't have the information they need. They don't have the ideas, they don't have the scripts, they don't have the tools, they don't have all the guidance that they need. So that is part of the reason that I show up each and every week, is to give that to you guys. Right, to impart some of that stuff to you, things that I know that work. And then number 2 is to give you the motivation, to give you the encouragement to just get out there and take action, right? So I hope that you guys are excited. I hope you're ready to do some things with what you hear today. And hey, Marie, great to have you on board there from New Jersey. Thanks for being a part of Real Training Live today. I know we should have quite a few more people jumping in here as we get going. All right, so again, your job today is to figure out what are the 1 or 2 things that I can take away, that I'm ready to implement, that I'm ready to take action on, I'm ready to make some changes on regarding my business, okay? So we're going to talk about tracking the numbers today, all right? It is interesting because I was just thinking about this morning as I was doing some prep for my, my coaching calls and for some of the other things that I was going to be doing today, and I realized that we've crossed over the midway point of May, but we've also now crossed over the midway point of the second quarter. Did you guys realize that? Okay, you got 3 months, you got a month and a half gone. April and half of May are gone. Okay, so we are now on the downward side of the second quarter of 2018. So that kind of brings me to the idea of looking at your numbers and saying, hey, you know what? Are you where you're supposed to be right now? Do you know where you're supposed to be right now? Because I think for some agents, the reality is they're not even really sure where they should be at this point in the year in terms of listings, sales, income, things like that. So when we get into this conversation here today about tracking your numbers, one of the things we're going to have to look at is your business plan. It's your goals, right? Because you need to know basically what you're supposed to be on track for, so that as you look at the reality of your numbers, you can assess and say, hey, am I doing what I'm supposed to do, or am I like way behind? Or for some of you, it'll be exciting in some cases to look at it and realize, man, I'm ahead of the pace. I am doing better than I thought I would be doing at this point in the year, which is not a bad thing, right? So let's kind of start off with answering this question. And that is, why do we bother to track our numbers? Why is this so important? Why do we hear this talked about on such a regular basis? Well, a couple of thoughts on that. First of all, and I mentioned this, by the way, this morning, if you guys are a part of, or if you watch the Make Today Count videos that I try to do several mornings a week, I talked about that a little bit this morning, because you are business people, right? You're not just a salesperson. You're not just somebody out there trying to bump into people who want to sell a property or buy a property. You're a business person, okay? You are running a specific business, and your ability to help people buy and sell property happens to be the service your business provides. So any good business person, any good business, any business that wants to be profitable has to know their numbers. And here's the thought, guys. Do you think that most successful companies probably know the numbers of their competitors? Right? Are they keeping up with the market? Are they keeping up with statistics to make sure they know how they compare to what's going on in the rest of the market? And of course, we know the answer is yes, guys. So if I were standing in front of you, I'd say, hey, how many of you consider yourself to be business people? And I would hope that everybody's hand would be in the air. But as soon as you would confess to that, you are now almost obligated, in my opinion, to be tracking your numbers. So that's one good reason. And you got to look at what other professionals do. Think about not just corporations, but think about professional athletes, sports organizations, which quite frankly are some of the best businesses on the planet in terms of profitability, but they track everything. Have you ever noticed that, guys? They track all the statistics, they track all the relevant numbers, and then that tells them how they're doing, and it helps them shape their game plan going forward. So a question that you might want to think about is, what are your numbers, right? The numbers for your business as of today. What are they telling you about your strategy for the rest of this year? Okay, based on what's happened, what you're seeing, what the trends are, what the ratios are, is that giving you any thoughts or guidance on what you should be doing for the rest of 2018? And I hope the answer is yes. And by the way, guys, if you need some help with this, if you have some questions about really understanding what the numbers are saying, feel free, please, to send me a message, put a comment below, and just let me know that you'd like to set up a session to look at your numbers and to really talk through what they mean, not only for the first part of the year, but for the latter half of the year. Okay? So those are some reasons why, guys, we need to be tracking in the first place. All right? If you're a business person, it's almost obligatory. And I'm telling you right now, you can't really grow if you don't know the direction to grow in. You can't get better if you don't know whether you're any good at all right now or what areas you're good in. Okay? So then the question becomes, well, okay, James, fine. I get it. I should be tracking my numbers, but what am I supposed to be tracking? What am I supposed to be paying attention of? Do I just write down and track everything? Well, the truth is, yeah, in some cases, you might want to track a lot more than you already are. But let me give you 4 or 5 specific numbers, specific areas of your business that you should be tracking. Okay? And for some of you, as you're watching this, I'm guessing that you're already doing some of this. Okay, I hope that's the case. What we want to do is figure out, are there some ways to get better? Are there ways to get a little bit more efficient at tracking these numbers? Okay, so first thing you need to be tracking is, how many days do you actually work? Okay, how many days a week, how many days a month do you actually show up and do anything? Right? I mean, we're an independent contractor in real estate, right? We can come and go as we please. Well, it would be nice to know how often you actually show up and do your job. Okay? Do you show up and make calls and go after business 20 days a month? Do you do it 23 days a month? Do you do it 11 days a month? Okay? So we would want to know, how many days do you actually work on average per week? The second thing is, we want to know how many hours you put in terms of active lead generation, and you might even want to measure your follow-up time as well. Okay? So do you spend an hour a day looking for new business? Do you spend 3 or 4 hours a day looking for new business? Okay? Because once we know what the number of hours are, we're going to be able to tell a lot more based on some of the other things that we're going to track. So, number of days you work, how many hours do you tend to put in? You should be tracking that in terms of prospecting and follow-up. And then thirdly, you want to track contacts. How many new people a day do you actually speak to? And I'm telling you right now, there's a good argument that you could make that this is probably one of the most important numbers of anything that you track. Because our job, guys, let's be honest. Let's remember what our job is in real estate. All right? When you chose to get into real estate and be an active business person and salesperson, your job description is to find the people that want to buy or sell property in your marketplace in the next 30 days or sooner. Okay, that's really your job. It's to go out there and just find the people who want to do business with you. Because if you're going to set a goal to sell, say, 30 houses this year, 70 houses this year, if you have a large team and you want to set a goal to sell 300 houses as a team, that's going to require that you speak to a certain number of people, try to find the ones that are going to do that. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So we really need to know, you really need to know how many people on average per day are you speaking to find the ones who want to do business? Okay. Fourthly is you want to track how many qualified appointments that you set and also go on. All right, so those are almost like two different things. How many do you set? How many do you go on? And we're talking about showing appointments or in-office buyer appointments and, of course, listing presentations. Okay, so how many do you set? Do you set 2 a week? Do you set 5 a week? Do you go on 1 every other week? Do you go on 2 per week, right? So we want to know appointments, which are the results, hopefully, of not only the prospecting, but the lead follow-up. In fact, one of the things I want to look at here in just a couple minutes is what do the numbers actually tell us? Okay, because you can get to a point where you're tracking all this stuff. It's like, okay, man, here it is. Here's my data. Boom, I've worked this many days per year, or this year so far. I've spent this many hours in terms of active lead generation and lead follow-up and things like that. Excuse me. I have spoken to this many people. I've then set this many appointments. You might know all those numbers, but you might not know what they're telling you. All right. So that's kind of the second phase of numbers tracking, is really understanding what does this mean for how good of a salesperson I am and how much better I can become. All right. So guys, if this is making sense, I've seen some likes so far, so please keep hitting the like button for me. Wow face, hit the share button. Jason from Minneapolis, great to have you on board, sir, as always. So glad you can be a part of Real Training Live today. And again, guys, if this is speaking to you, hit the share button and find a few agents that you can shoot this out to. Get them involved either live with us right now, or they can watch this as a rebroadcast, all right? So again, let's go back to what should we be paying attention to? Okay, we should be paying attention to days worked, number of hours worked, how many people we speak to, how many appointments we set, how many we go on, and then ultimately, how many listings do you take? How many buyer sales do you make? Okay, we got to track these things. Do I take a listing 7 out of every 10 times I go to present? Do I take a listing 4 times out of every 10 that I go to present? That's a big difference. So if you know all of those things, now you are actually stepping into the realm of being a very serious and proactive salesperson, guys. And this is where we want to be, right? This is how you maximize your profitability. It's how you decide whether you're going to grow your team and add on, bring on another salesperson, bring on maybe a qualifier like an ISA type person that can help you set appointments. Excuse me, or you may need some more administrative help. All right, so lots of things that can be answered based on the numbers that we're seeing from whatever it is that you guys are doing. All right, so again, if this is making sense, please, guys, I appreciate the comments, the questions, the likes, anything that you guys need or want to do to make this interactive is why we are live here on Real Training Live. Okay, so now we know why do we track, what we track. Now we got to start talking about, hey, what does all this mean? And really, this is kind of the nitty gritty, guys, of of the analysis of your business. So, for example, if I'm looking at a numbers analyzer or a numbers tracker for one of my clients, and I see that they are supposed to have shown up 90 times so far this year to prospect or to work or whatever their number is, and they've actually only shown up 71 times, immediately there's an opportunity. Immediately I can say, well, let me ask you a question. Why is it that you are working so inconsistently? Why is it you're not showing up as often as you need to be? Have you changed your goals? Have you decided that you're not as excited about achieving your goals? And we can start getting into figuring out what is getting in the way here. Now, in some cases, it might be travel, it might be sickness, it might be some other stuff. But if we can figure out how to get them to show up more often, in many cases, hey, you know what, guys, that'll close the gap right there. Now, we can also look at something like, for example, contacts per hour. Because again, you're tracking hours, you're tracking contacts. If we're seeing that you're actually only speaking to 3 people an hour, I'm going to start to ask you some questions about your efficiency. And you should start thinking about and paying attention to, man, like, what am I doing during all of this supposed prospecting time? I'll give you a good example. About 2 weeks ago, I was talking to a coaching client. and we were just kind of looking at the numbers, and I noticed that the contacts per hour was super low. I mean, it was around 4.5 people per hour. And I said to this client, I said, okay, so let's talk about what you're actually doing when you're prospecting. And what it turned out, I'm not going to share the whole thing with you because it, probably wouldn't be all that exciting. But the bottom line was he was putting down a number of hours per week that were not just prospecting. He was including in that a lot of his research time. So he would make some calls and then he'd get back on the MLS and do more research to try to find more expireds. Or he'd go back to try to find more for sale by owners or whatever the case might be. And he was just counting all that as prospecting. And I said to him, man, you've got to just track the number of hours that you are actually on the phone or that you're actually knocking on doors. All right? Because see, as a salesperson and as a business person, you have certain things that are productive activities and there are certain activities that are necessary, but they're not productive. Okay? And doing research, accumulating numbers, pulling all these things together, scrubbing your lists, that is not productive. It's necessary, absolutely necessary, but it doesn't have to be done by you. There might be somebody else that you can have helping you pull these things together. So when you sit down and you want to prospect for 2 hours, that's all you're doing. You're just making calls. You're just reaching out to people for 2 hours, not stopping every 10 minutes or 15 minutes to get more. Okay, so I hope that makes sense, guys. If it does, please hit the like, tell me about it, comment below, ask some questions. But I want you to understand that the more accurate you guys can be, when you track your numbers, the better we can evaluate what's happening and help you get better results. Okay? So contacts per hour, that's a huge part of being efficient, is you should be able to speak to 8, 10, 12 people per hour in some cases. Depending on the dialer system that you have and your level of efficiency, you can get 10 per hour very easily. Which means if your daily goal is to speak to 25 people, you would have to have 2.5 hours set aside. Okay? If you're actually only averaging 5 or 6 people per hour and you want to talk to 25 people a day, man, you're looking at 4 to 5 hours of time on the phone. That's not too exciting, guys. I don't know a lot of people that get super excited about having to spend 5 hours a day on the phone. Okay? So there are so many things that your numbers can tell us. Here's another example. We look at the percentage of how many appointments you go on compared to the number of listing contracts that you get signed. Now, if you looked at a number or a percentage from an agent and they were only getting the contract signed 40% of the time, your immediate thought might be, man, their presentation absolutely stinks. But the truth is that may not be the problem. The other problem might be that their lead follow-up is not very good. They're just not following up and they're not getting good quality people to go present to. Really, it's almost more of a pre-qualifying issue. All right, so it could be pre-qualifying. It could be their follow-up system is bad, or it might be that their presentation is not super strong. Okay, so Jason, I see a question from you. What dialer do you recommend? Well, I'd say probably the most popular and really I think one of the best is the Mojo dialer. Okay, you guys can hook up on mojosells.com and get set up with their dialer. They also provide data packages. All right, so you can get their expireds, their for sale by owners. They have something called the Lead Store, I believe it is, that provides phone numbers for calling around listings and sales, things like that. You can get a dialer from them that is just a single line dialer, or you can get the multi-line dialer, which obviously is really good for the colder calls and things like that. So I think Mojo is probably the one I would recommend. There are a couple other, decent ones out there, but I would start with Mojo. And then Marie, you said, is that new leads or new and existing? I'm not sure what I said that you were asking it about. Is that new leads or new and existing? I'm trying to think here what I said. Maybe you can just type in a quick qualifier on that question below for me, Marie. That would be awesome. And then we can try to get that answered. You bet, Jason. No problem, man. I hope that that works for you. And if you do get that set up and you have some questions, again, man, comment below. You know how to get in touch with me. You can email me. You can message me. You can text me. You can do lots of things. All right? So, like I was just saying, one of the things that we look at when I am looking at efficiency is not just what's right in front of us, but the behind-the-scenes systems. Okay, you'd be surprised how much of an impact your lead follow-up system has on your contact to appointment ratio. I've got agents all the time, man, and they're like telling me all these hours they spend, and they're showing me all the contacts they make and how few appointments they get. And in a lot of cases, to me, that doesn't speak about their prospecting skills. To me, it speaks to their lack of follow-up skills. Okay, they're probably finding people that want to do something, but these people are slipping through the cracks before they ever get a chance to go present to them. Okay, so lead follow-up in many cases can be the biggest problem that agents have as far as getting more appointments. Okay, so tracking your data, tracking your contacts. Yes, that is new leads. Okay, we're not talking about lead follow-up in your contact count. Although, it is important to know or to pay attention to how many leads or so that you are finding when you're doing your prospecting. But when you're talking about today's numbers and you're saying, okay, I prospected or I showed up for, 3 hours today on the phones and I spoke to 28 people, that should be new ones. Okay, that should be new contacts that you have not spoken to before. And that is in addition to then however many leads you got to follow up with today. Okay, you may have 2, you may have 6 leads that you have to try to reach today as well. So, Maria, I hope that answers your question. But what we're tracking is the new stuff. Okay, how many new people per day are you talking to and potentially finding business from? Okay, cool. All right. So, yeah, lead follow-up is critical. Pre-qualifying, like I said before, you can look at a ratio of listings presented to listings taken, and it might be 40-50%, and you're thinking, wow, they're just horrible presenters. That may be true, but my guess is they're not going on qualified appointments even though they think they are. They're not asking the right questions. So when you look at your numbers and you figure out, in fact, if you know right now, or maybe you can find out while you're watching this, and message me in the comments below and just say, hey, I've been on blank number of appointments this year so far, and this is how many listings I've taken. And we can figure out the percentage. And I'm telling you right now, that percentage should be a minimum of 70%. Okay? You should be good enough in terms of your pre-qualifying and your presentation ability to get the listing contract signed at least 70% of the time. All right? Now, some of you, you guys look at that and you're like, oh my gosh, man, I'm like so far off. You might be far off. First of all, it's good that you know that you're far off, because if you didn't even realize what you could be getting, you'd be thinking you're doing just fine. But it's sometimes good to look in the mirror. The numbers of your business are just like a mirror. Sometimes you don't like what the mirror has to say. Sometimes you kind of wish it were a little more foggy. It were a little more warped and distorted, because you'd like it to give you an image that is more exciting to you. But hey, the mirror doesn't lie. And did you ever notice the closer you get to the mirror, and I'm not going to do it right now because that's just a little freaky on camera if I got right up to the camera, but the closer you get, the more you can see, right? The more things that you see that you don't necessarily like. Well, it's the same way with your numbers, guys. The more you're willing to dig into your numbers, the more you might find things that don't really flatter you as a salesperson the way you wish they did. But I tell you what, that's how you grow. Okay, that's how you learn. That's how you get better, is by seeing the reality of the fact that, you know what, my follow-up program, my follow-up system is not very good, because I should be going on a lot more appointments than I'm going on based on the number of people I'm talking to. Okay? Now, let me make a comment about this too, guys, because one of the things, if we go back to looking at contacts, one of the things that will make this a little bit more complicated but will make it very helpful is to know who you're speaking to. Okay? So, for example, you might say, I spoke to 100 people this week, and of those 100 people, 14 of them were for sale by owners, 19 of them were either new or old expireds. Then I spoke to 11 people from my past client list and or my SOI, and the rest of them were all cold calls. They were hot market calls. They were just listed, just sold type calls. They were calls to neighborhoods where I'm doing an open house. Okay? Because the appointments you get, the leads you get are obviously going to be different based on who you're calling. Okay? You got Agent A over here that calls and speaks to 500 people in a month, and they're all cold contacts. And then you got another agent over here that only speaks to 80 or 100 people for the month. But the majority of them were FSBOs and expireds and maybe people from their database. I'm betting that the agent who spoke to 100 people is going to have more appointments set and more hot leads generated than the one who spoke to 500. It could very well be, right? So part of looking at the numbers is to know who the heck are you talking to, right? Are you talking to a lot of cold stuff, or are you talking to high quality contacts? All right, so to track that, it takes a little bit more effort. But you see, once again, you zoom in, you take this seriously, you get closer to the reality and the truth of what's going on, and it tells a story. It helps us help you. All right? So, again, you need to understand that what your numbers are telling you could mean something as simple as get out your pre-qualifying script and start using it. Stop trying to wing it. Stop going out on appointments that you don't even bother to qualify. The numbers might be telling you that you need to stop being so distracted by your phone and your email and everything else and get more focused prospecting in so your contacts per hour goes up. Okay? Because if your contacts per hour goes up and you're willing to stick to the same number of hours, you're going to speak to more people. You talk to more people, you're probably going to set more appointments. Set more appointments, I hope you go on more. You go on more, I hope you take more, you sell more, you make more money. Okay? Direct relationship, guys, between these little things and your bottom line. Everybody wants to focus on the bottom line. Everybody wants to say, well, how much money did I make? How much money did I get to save or put aside or invest? Well, if you truly want that number to be better, you got to trace it all the way back to the little things. Like, are you actually showing up? How many days a week are you actually showing up? How many people are you actually committing to speak to? How good are you at your scripts? Okay? There is a big impact on the numbers based on how good you are. Okay? Again, Agent A just got in the business 2 weeks ago. Has begun the prospecting process. They go out and they talk to 100 people on a week. Agent B is a prospecting veteran, been in the business 12 years, been prospecting, doing their thing. They talk to 100 people this week. Who do you think is going to have better looking numbers? Okay, contacts might be the same. Who's going to have higher quality leads and more appointments? Obviously, it's the agent who's been doing it longer. The agent who has the higher skill set. All right? So, your numbers might be telling you that you need to practice your scripts a lot more. That you need to get serious about becoming a strong, compelling salesperson. Okay? So, again, I don't know what your numbers are. I don't know what they're saying. If you want me to take a peek at that, again, put a comment below and just say, hey, I'd like to set up a call. Maybe we can put something together to do a one-time numbers evaluation coaching call. Okay? And we can go through everything that you've got and come up with a strategy and figure out what that's telling us and what you have to do. But guys, it's simple. Track your numbers, understand what they're telling you, and then make changes and decisions based on what your numbers are telling you, because they're not lying. Okay? They are what they are. You have to decide, what are you going to do with the numbers that you're getting? Okay? So what are we at here? Almost about 1:30. So again, with most of these topics, guys, I don't want to beat it to death. All right? I want to get in, get out, give you some great information, encourage you to do something with it, and then let you get back to your day so you can be productive. So if you have any other questions, you've got any other things that you want to comment on, please go ahead in the next couple of minutes, put that below so that I can respond to that. We can interact a little bit together. And please, again, hit the share button. All right. If you got something out of this call today, would you do me a favor and just share it with somebody else, or maybe 2 or 3 somebody else's, because it's a numbers game, right? The more people you share with, the more people to see it. The more people to see it, the more people respond to me. And we could get a little silly with this, but you get my point. All right. So let me just do a quick check of my notes. I think I've covered just about everything that I wanted to talk to you guys about tracking numbers. Okay? So you have a decision to make right now. You have to decide, of everything we've covered in the last 30 minutes, what are you going to do with it? What are the one or two things, one or two changes that you are going to make in your business over the next few days, the next couple of weeks? All right. And again, if you need some help, please comment below. If you want to talk to me about actually working together one-on-one individually, even if it's just for a 1-month stint or maybe a quick one call, comment below. Let me know. We can talk about it. All right. So guys, that is it for Real Training Live for this week. I hope that you guys are excited to go out and make some changes and do some things with what we've covered here today, talking about your numbers. All right. So have a fantastic rest of the week. Be back here again, 1 o'clock Eastern time next Wednesday for Real Training Live. In the meantime, get out there and make today count, guys.